Have you ever met someone who sees right through the walls you've built? Someone who understands your fears before you even voice them? That person, the super empath, is rare. And for someone with avoidant tendencies, they are even rarer. Avoidants often retreat, push people away, and struggle to recognize the depth of someone's love until it's gone. A super empath is not just kind, they are deeply intuitive, endlessly patient, and fiercely loyal. They sense your moods, your anxieties, your silences. They notice the small things, the smile you hide, the tension you carry, and they respond with compassion. They give love without needing constant reassurance. They love unconditionally. But here's the catch. Avoidants, by their nature, may not always recognize this. They might misread patience as weakness or compassion as dependence. And because of that, they sometimes take the super empath for granted. They may not see the value of this love until it's gone, until the empath decides that enough is enough. When a super empath finally steps away, the avoidant is left facing a truth they weren't prepared for. The person they could have relied on forever is no longer there. That absence is not just physical, it's emotional, spiritual, and irreplaceable. The super empath doesn't just leave a void, they leave a mirror. And in that reflection, the avoidant finally realizes the depth of what they lost. The lesson here is powerful. Love fiercely but wisely. Recognize your value and never dim your light for someone who can't appreciate it. Because super empaths are not easy to replace. They teach, they heal, and they love in a way that lingers long after they're gone. And for those who fail to recognize it, the realization often comes too late. So if you are a super empath, honor your own heart. If you are with someone avoidant, appreciate the depth of the love you have before it slips away. Love is a gift, rare, precious, and irreversible if neglected. A super empath is not just someone who cares, they are a rare soul who lives on a different emotional wavelength. They have an almost uncanny ability to sense what others feel, even when it's hidden beneath layers of words, walls, or silence. They notice the subtle shifts in tone, the fleeting expressions that most people overlook, and the tiny gestures that reveal more than words ever could. This isn't just intuition, it's an innate understanding of human emotion. A deep connection to the hearts and minds of those around them. Super empaths have a heightened sensitivity that allows them to feel the undercurrents of tension or joy in a room, to intuit the fears and hopes of those they love, and to respond in ways that make people feel seen, understood, and safe. They are endlessly patient, not in the passive sense, but in the way they offer space and acceptance without judgment. While others may become frustrated or walk away when someone struggles to open up, the super empath stays. They understand that emotional walls are often built from past pain, that avoidance and distance are protective mechanisms, and they have the capacity to love someone without demanding immediate change or reciprocation. Their patience is a quiet strength, a resilience that comes from knowing that true connection cannot be rushed. They offer kindness without conditions, and they listen not just to the words spoken, but to the unspoken truths behind them. Fierce loyalty is another hallmark of the super empath. Once they commit emotionally, they are unwavering. They show up not only in the easy moments, but especially when challenges arise, when others might retreat or turn away. Their loyalty is rooted in empathy, in a profound understanding of the value of human connection and the significance of being present for someone else. They do not keep score, nor do they manipulate or coerce. Their love is steady, enduring, and nurturing, creating a safe emotional anchor for those who might otherwise drift or shut down. Super empaths are also remarkable in the way they combine sensitivity with discernment. They can recognize when their energy is being drained or when a relationship is becoming toxic, yet they navigate these dynamics with grace. Their empathy is not blind, it is paired with insight, wisdom, and emotional intelligence. They sense when to offer support, when to provide guidance, and when to step back to protect themselves. This balance allows them to sustain deep, meaningful connections while maintaining their own well-being. Above all, a super empath makes those around them feel truly seen. In their presence, people feel validated, heard, and valued in ways that go far beyond surface-level interactions. They remember details, notice patterns, and respond in ways that show they genuinely care. This rare combination of intuition, patience, loyalty, and perceptiveness creates a kind of emotional alchemy, making them indispensable to anyone lucky enough to receive their love. Their impact is subtle, yet profound, touching lives in ways that linger long after words fade. Avoidants are fascinating in how they interact with love and connection, and their blind spots are particularly pronounced when it comes to super empaths. An avoidant person tends to guard themselves fiercely, keeping emotional walls high and intimacy at a careful distance. They often prioritize independence and self-protection over vulnerability, which means they can overlook or misinterpret the depth of someone else's love. The super empath, by contrast, is deeply attuned to the emotional landscape around them. They sense needs, emotions, and unspoken truths, yet the avoidant may see these gestures not as expressions of love, but as signs of dependence, neediness, or pressure. This misreading is rarely intentional. It is simply a byproduct of their protective mechanisms. Because avoidants are conditioned to manage closeness cautiously, they often struggle to acknowledge or even appreciate someone who offers unconditional support. When a super empath demonstrates patience, understanding, or unwavering loyalty, the avoidant might unconsciously dismiss these qualities as ordinary or expect them to continue indefinitely. They may not realize that this level of emotional engagement is rare, that it requires consistent energy, insight, and sacrifice. In their minds, the empath's attentiveness can be taken for granted, seen as something they are entitled to rather than something extraordinary and precious. The blind spot is also amplified by the avoidant's discomfort with vulnerability. When someone mirrors their emotions or challenges them with empathy, it can feel unfamiliar, overwhelming, or even threatening. Avoidants are not naturally equipped to process such intense emotional clarity, especially when it highlights their own fears, insecurities, or shortcomings. As a result, they might distance themselves, rationalize the empath's actions as unnecessary, or misattribute intentions. They rarely stop to fully comprehend the depth, patience, and loyalty that is being offered. Additionally, avoidants often underestimate the long-term impact of losing such a connection. While they may recognize affection in passing, they do not always grasp the transformative power of a super empath's love until it is no longer available. The blind spot is not just a failure to appreciate, it is a structural aspect of their emotional wiring. The avoidant may feel relief in avoiding intensity in the short term, but in the long term, they experience a subtle, often painful void that reminds them of what they failed to notice or nurture. Super empaths, with their keen perception, can sense this dynamic too. They understand that some people, especially avoidants, may never fully appreciate their love while it exists. This creates a tension between giving wholeheartedly and preserving their own emotional well-being. The empath recognizes the imbalance, feeling both the pull to care and the need to protect themselves from being undervalued. The avoidance blind spot, in this sense, is not malicious. It is simply a reflection of their internal defense mechanisms, which inadvertently obscure the extraordinary value of someone who loves with such clarity and consistency. Ultimately, this blind spot explains why avoidants so often realize the worth of a super empath only after the connection is lost. The very traits that make the empath so indispensable, their insight, patience, loyalty, and emotional intelligence, can go unnoticed, misunderstood, or underappreciated until absence illuminates their true significance. It is in that moment of loss that the avoidant finally confronts what they have ignored, often too late. When someone takes the love of a super empath for granted, the cost is rarely immediate, but it is profound and long-lasting. Super empaths offer love that is patient, intuitive, and unwavering, yet they are not inexhaustible. Their love is a gift, one that requires recognition and mutual respect to sustain. When an avoidant repeatedly overlooks their depth, dismisses their efforts, or fails to respond in kind, it sets the stage for a loss that is deeply felt. Often, avoidants do not notice the imbalance in the moment. They may assume the empath's patience is limitless, that their loyalty is automatic, or that their presence will always be there, regardless of how they are treated. This underestimation is the root of the high cost. The empath gives fully, and the avoidant does not recognize or reciprocate until the absence becomes undeniable. The moment the super empath decides they can no longer continue in a relationship where their value is unrecognized is a turning point. It is not a rash decision. It is the result of subtle signals, emotional fatigue, and an awareness that their love is not being fully appreciated. Avoidants, who have become accustomed to taking without truly acknowledging, are often blindsided. They may not have anticipated that someone could care so deeply and yet walk away because they were unseen. This is the reality of taking love for granted. What was once abundant and reliable suddenly becomes a void. The absence of a super empath is not easily filled because the qualities they embody, intuition, patience, loyalty, and emotional intelligence, are not easily replicated. The emotional aftermath is stark. Avoidants may feel confusion, regret, or even desperation as they confront the reality that the love they had was extraordinary, rare, and transformative. They experience a sense of emptiness, a recognition that someone once present is now a permanent absence. The cost is not just emotional, it is relational and even spiritual. Relationships that might have grown into deep, enduring connections are lost, and the avoidant must face the reality that their behavior, whether conscious or not, contributed to this loss. The super empath does not return to fill the gap because they have moved on to preserve their own well-being, to invest their energy where it will be acknowledged and cherished. Moreover, taking love for granted often blinds the avoidant to the subtle lessons the empath provided while present. Super empaths teach through their presence. They model patience, empathy, and emotional depth, demonstrating how a truly connected relationship operates. Ignoring or underestimating these lessons means missing the opportunity for growth while the relationship exists. By the time absence hits, the avoidant is faced with both the loss and the mirror of what they failed to understand. This realization is often jarring because it comes too late to change the past. They cannot reconstruct the empathy, care, and patience that were freely given and now withdrawn. Ultimately, the cost of taking a super empath for granted is a profound emotional void, coupled with the painful recognition of lost potential. It is a loss that resonates far beyond the immediate relationship, leaving an indelible impression of what true, selfless, and insightful love really looks like. For avoidance, this cost serves as a harsh but important lesson in appreciation, presence, and emotional awareness. Super empaths understand the importance of self-respect and boundaries, and this awareness is essential in relationships with avoidants. Their hearts are vast and generous, yet they know that giving endlessly without acknowledgement or reciprocity can erode their sense of self. Super empaths are deeply attuned to emotional energy, not just their own, but that of the people around them. And they recognize when a relationship begins to tilt into imbalance. They feel the strain when their love, care, and patience are consistently overlooked or taken for granted. And they understand that maintaining their emotional well-being requires setting limits. This is not about building walls out of fear, but about protecting the core of who they are while still engaging authentically and compassionately. Boundaries for super empaths are a form of self-honor. They allow the empath to continue giving love and support without losing themselves in the process. In relationships with avoidants, this becomes especially critical because avoidants may not naturally respond to emotional openness or sustain the same level of connection. By establishing boundaries, super empaths create a framework where their generosity is respected, their needs are acknowledged, and their emotional labor is not exploited. This is a quiet power, a way of loving fully while also safeguarding their heart from depletion. Self-respect in this context means recognizing one's value and refusing to settle for less than what is deserved. A super empath knows that their empathy is not a commodity to be used without regard, nor is their patience a weakness to be exploited. They understand that love should be mutual, balanced, and nurturing, and they expect that the person receiving their care will eventually recognize and honor it. This awareness does not make them rigid or detached. Rather, it empowers them to love consciously and to avoid losing themselves in relationships where their worth is minimized. The decision to set boundaries often comes after careful observation and reflection. Super empaths notice patterns. They sense when efforts are consistently unappreciated, and they acknowledge the subtle emotional cost of investing in someone who cannot meet them halfway. Boundaries can manifest in small ways, limiting emotional availability, asserting needs clearly, or creating space when the relationship feels draining. These measures are not punitive. They are acts of self-preservation that ensure the empath's love remains a source of strength rather than exhaustion. By prioritizing self-respect, super empaths model a critical lesson in emotional intelligence. Love is not diminished by boundaries, it is enhanced. When avoidants are confronted with someone who loves fully yet maintains their own sense of worth, it challenges them to recognize the depth of what they have, to reflect on their behavior, and, in some cases, to awaken to the love they have taken for granted. In this way, the super empath's respect for themselves is not only protective, it is transformative. It communicates silently yet powerfully that love without acknowledgement is incomplete, and that true connection requires mutual care and presence. Ultimately, self-respect and boundaries are the tools that allow super empaths to sustain their extraordinary capacity for love while preserving the integrity of their hearts. They ensure that the empath's energy is spent where it is valued, and they teach the world that loving wisely is as important as loving deeply. The love of a super empath is rare, transformative, and unforgettable. It is the kind of love that penetrates layers of defenses, that heals old wounds, and that illuminates the best in the people they care about. Super empaths do not love superficially. They invest fully, seeing not just the surface, but the depth of another person's soul. They notice the small gestures, the unspoken struggles, the quiet moments that often go unseen by others. This attention and care create an emotional intimacy that is profound and enduring. For those who have been fortunate enough to experience it, the presence of a super empath leaves a lasting imprint, one that shapes the way they understand connection, empathy, and love for the rest of their lives. Because this love is so rare, it is often irreplaceable. Not everyone can match the combination of intuition, patience, and unwavering loyalty that a super empath brings. They see people in ways that others cannot and respond with a depth of understanding that feels almost magical. When an avoidant realizes the value of this love too late, they are faced with a void that cannot simply be filled by someone else. The empath's presence, their ability to hold space for emotional growth, their gentle insistence on being seen and valued. These are qualities that are not easily duplicated. The realization of such a loss is often accompanied by regret and longing, because the connection was not just about companionship. It was about a rare, authentic understanding that can transform a person's emotional world. Super empaths also have a way of leaving subtle yet lasting lessons behind. Through their presence, they model what deep, attentive, and selfless love looks like. They demonstrate patience without expectation, compassion without condition, and loyalty without demand. Even after they are gone, the impact of their love continues to shape the choices, relationships, and emotional awareness of those who experienced it. Avoidants, who may have struggled to fully recognize the empath's value while present, are confronted with these lessons in absence. They see what was offered, what was nurtured, and what was lost, and they are reminded of the profound depth that they failed to fully appreciate. The irreplaceable nature of a super empath's love also underscores the importance of recognizing and valuing those who care deeply. It is a reminder that emotional connections are precious and that true love is not a resource to be taken lightly. The empath's influence lingers because they touch more than the surface. They reach into the very core of who we are, making us more aware of our needs, our worth, and our capacity to give and receive love. Their absence is felt not just as a gap in companionship, but as a profound shift in emotional resonance. A space that cannot be replicated because the person who once filled it brought something singular and unmatched. Ultimately, the love of a super empath is a treasure, both fragile and enduring. It teaches, heals, and transforms, and its loss is a lesson in both the power of love and the cost of failing to recognize it. For avoidance, the realization of this love too late is a poignant reminder that some connections, once gone, cannot be replaced, and that the depth of care, insight, and presence offered by a super empath is something truly rare, precious, and unforgettable. In the end, the love of a super empath is rare, transformative, and unforgettable, a gift that teaches us the power of presence, patience, and self-respect. For those who fail to recognize it, the realization often comes too late, leaving an irreplaceable void. Let us all honor the depth of true love, value those who see us fully, and never take for granted the hearts that care unconditionally. Thank you for listening, and may you always recognize and cherish the extraordinary love that surrounds you.